Welcome back to Meeke. Thank you so much for sticking around. Today, we are talking about business, and not just any kind of business. We're talking about going into business for yourself. That is becoming an entrepreneur. And so I've been curious, thinking about how does God feel about people who start their own businesses? Is there a place for Christians in starting their own businesses? And so I have a couple guests who are going to join me today, and we're going to talk about that. My first guest is Courtney Westbrook. And Courtney, you've been in business for yourself about 3 years now.
Yes.
You are the president and CEO of Courtney Westbrook Enterprises, but you also have founded and oversee 4 businesses.
Yes.
On top of all of that, most importantly, you are married to your wife, Christian,
Yes.
3 years now. Now, I want to say this because in kind of doing a little of my background research and looking at your bio and stuff like that, I noticed that you went into business for yourself about 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Is that just like kind of a neat coincidence, or is that one of those things, he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord? I think it's awesome that you decided to kind of branch out and launch your own business, your own, I guess eventually corporation is where you're headed.
Absolutely.
I mean, I was looking at some of your stuff, and you've got huge vision for where you want to go, where you believe the Lord is taking you. So, but now I saw this too, and I thought I'm going to have to get you to define this for me. You call yourself the people's entrepreneur. What does that mean, Courtney?
Well, I'm in the people business.
Okay.
Everything I do is for people, and actually I didn't give myself the title. I have a business associate in California, and we're very, very close. We've been networking for a few years, and he knows me. He knows kind of where I want to go, and knows me business and personally. And we were talking the other day, and we were just kind of talking about business, some of the things he's doing and I'm doing. He was like, man, you know what? You're the people's entrepreneur. Like Ali was the people's champ. You're the people's entrepreneur. Because everything I do, I just want to help people. I want to see people succeed. One
of the things, that was something that kind of struck me about all of your businesses. They're not really Courtney focused.
Right.
They're really others focused. Right. It's all about building people. I mean, let's just do this. Why don't you kind of give us an overview of what your businesses are? Okay.
The first business I started was Artistic Minds Institute. I'm a musician. That's my first love. So piano is my craft. And so I started a business, Artistic Minds Institute. I just teach music lessons. I just started at my church, just a couple of kids at church just teaching music lessons. Yeah. Very humble, and it just kind of grew from there. And so from Artistic Minds Institute, birthed Dominion Artistry. So the graphic design, I had to learn how to do the logos and the websites because I didn't know anyone, so I just learned how to do it myself. And there was a guy at church gave me software to do it, and so, websites, business cards, CAD programs, product design, all types of stuff, that has come from that. And so photography, charade photography, I love photography. That was never meant to be a business, actually. It was a hobby. One of my family members saw that I love photography, so they blessed me with a camera. And so it just, I made money doing that. So, and so that just kind of came along. And all of this it birthed just over these past few years. And it's just really a blessing. And the current thing that I'm working on now is my magazine.
Oh, let's talk about that because, and I want the camera to get a shot of this because, Courtney, that is good looking.
Thank you.
That right there, that's not, I made this in my garage. That's the real deal. So how did that come about?
I made it in my bedroom.
No. That's right. We are talking about entrepreneurs. So that would be where you, but this is amazing. So how do you get to the point where, because someone's watching this right now, Courtney, and, I really believe that in the body of Christ, God has equipped us with all sorts of giftings and all sorts of things that we could do to advance his kingdom, but because of fear, doubt, lack of motivation, maybe we're not married, to someone who can envision what God has called us to do. Obviously, that's not the case for you, but people don't go forward in that. So what was it that put you over the edge and you just said, you know what, this is what I'm equipped to do and I'm going to do that?
Well, fear comes, of course you get afraid, you kind of hesitate and you kind of, okay, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? But then you get that moment of clarity. You get that moment of clarity, okay, God, I thank you. You've given me this. This is not something that I think of myself. I didn't just think of hey, I'm going to do a magazine. You know, it didn't come like that. You know, God downloaded it into me, and it just kind of came along, you know. And so, yeah, fear comes, and you get afraid of the unknown. And sometimes I still do be afraid of the unknown. But a lot of times it takes more courage than it does faith. Yeah. So you just have to step out there and do it. If you fail, okay, just get back up, try again.
And maybe those two working together. You know, you believe that this is something that God has equipped you to do. You feel passionate about it, and also believing that God gives you the courage to be able to step out and do those things. Now, let's talk about, because when we talk about being an entrepreneur and owning your own business, you have now moved from the place where someone else is taking all of the risk, and then you are being paid by them, to now you're taking all of the risk. Right. And if you don't work, you don't eat.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right.
That's scary, Courtney. You know, people would see that and go, you know, nope, I'm fine just clocking in. And, you know, my boss has invested a lot in this. I'm just going to stay right here. What would you say to that person if, you know, that's the kind of thing that's holding them back? Because you do kind of have to put, you know, foot to pavement and get out there and make it work.
Yes, yes, you do. And that's a part of it. You know, you have to make up in your mind that that's what you want to do. You know, of course, you may be afraid and you may be hesitant, and there may be things that are blocking it. But if that's what you want to do, you have to, like you say, you have to put your feet to the pavement, and you just have to do it. You know, you may not know what to do, but you know, as you go along, God will lead you. You know what I mean? And He'll tell you exactly what to do. And of course, if you don't work, you don't eat. You know?
That's right.
People tell me, you're so busy. You always, you don't understand. If I'm not busy, the lights aren't on. Right. If I'm not busy, Christian can't get her nails done. You know, so I have to be busy.
She's gonna be mad at you for saying that. Oh, she's mad. She's gonna do not tell people that. So, you know, are there things as you're kind of going along that serve as a confirmation for what it is that you're doing? Do you see God's hand kind of ushering you in this endeavor? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Well, with every assignment, there are signs. You know, if your assignment is to drive to Memphis, there are going to be some signs on the way to tell you, okay, Memphis, 50 miles.
That's good.
You know what I mean? So, so in pursuit of God's will, He's going to confirm His word. He's going to confirm His word with signs following. And favor and provision. With every vision, there is a provision. And so if you're missing the favor, you're missing the provision, or you have to step back and check yourself. Okay, God, is this what you called me to do, or am I on my own? You know what I mean? So there are definitely signs that, you know, in your journey, He'll reveal it to you.
Do you have to have everything set and ready to go before you launch it, Courtney? No. Do you have to have, you know, there's so many steps, and when you look at people pulling together business plans and having their 5 to 10 year vision, which you have that, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But, you know, do you have to have everything perfect before you just kind of take that leap or take that step of faith? You
don't. You don't. This is not a perfect world. You're never finished with your business plan. Never. You can pay $5,000 to get a business plan, but I guarantee you in a year it's going to change. Because as you go along, like I said, signs come. As you go along, things start to develop and your vision starts to change. I couldn't tell you how many times my business plan has changed. Yeah. And so even in this magazine and on my website, how to start a business with no money. You don't need money to start a business. A lot of people miss that. A lot of people think, I got to have all the components.
Yeah, no, we're thinking capital. You've got to have startup. You've got to be ready to, you know, especially if you think you're going to need investors. But you're saying, no.
You don't have to. Now, with some situations, yes, you do have to have startup. Some situations. But there's not many businesses that you can start without money. You
especially with the onset of the internet and all sorts of things that people need that they don't know they need, that all you've got to do is make them aware of it.
Yes, yes. And Google will be your best friend. Google everything. You know, just the key is to make the business pay for itself. This magazine, not a dime of it came out of my pocket.
Wow.
Not 1 cent.
Wow.
I produced this with no money at all.
That is mind-boggling. Yeah. You know, because I'm just thinking there are so many excuses and so many reasons why we can't. And I would even say, you know, the enemy would have a part to play in that. So many reasons why we might fail. You know, I want to go back to your Creative Minds Institute, Artistic Minds Institute. We really love music. You know, and that's one of the things that even as my husband kind of was looking into a lot of the stuff that you do, we thought this is absolutely amazing. Let's talk about your vision and you're focused in that area as you work with children, and you really are, even though, you know, it's music, but you really are playing a role in shaping their minds.
Absolutely, absolutely. I tell all my parents, and first of all, it's not just for children. It's for whomever wants to learn an instrument.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah.
Look
From
at that.
6 years old until you die. So it's not just for children.
Okay, that's great.
It's for anyone that wants to learn an instrument. A lot of people say I'm too old to learn. You're not too old. But definitely, I definitely take a part in shaping that child, you know, learning how to be disciplined. You have to sit down, you have to pay attention, you have to be focused, because if you're not focused, you can't learn. So we definitely, I don't force anything on the children. I don't force my religious beliefs or anything like that. That's not about that, you know, but it's about shaping and molding and about being disciplined. A lot of it.
I would say even though you have a school that is open to people of all religious backgrounds, I just have to believe that as a Christian, that's going to be an influence there, you know, and I would imagine that any parent, you know, there are a lot of qualities that those who are not Christians appreciate in a Christian.
Right.
You know, even though they're not believers, they
Exactly.
appreciate that we
Exactly.
have integrity, or that we're not going to, you know, teach their kids something that may be ungodly, you know. And so when you're in your classroom, or when you're sitting with your pupils, with your students, you know, do you have the realization that what you're doing is having an eternal impact on that student?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that, you know. So that plays a big part of it. People respect that. People respect you for, you know, like you say, your morals. They do.
I'm thinking about Christians in the business world, and sometimes we think of entrepreneurs, and we think of those who own their own businesses that maybe they're a little shifty, a little shisty, they're kind of coming to sell you a vacuum cleaner, you know. But I think that part of our role as believers is that we're supposed to change the face of that game. And so tell me, Courtney, how you are bringing integrity to what it is that you're doing, and representing Jesus Christ well in all of your endeavors.
Well, it's just about that, integrity. It's about being honest. You in business, all you have is your word, you know. Fathers raising up their sons, tell them, look, son, all you have is your word. Your word is your bond. Same way in business. Operate in integrity. If you can't do anything else, operate in integrity. And that plays a big part, even outside of just being Christian or spiritual, even outside of that, your integrity and your honesty, it will take you a long way. It will take you a long way.
What's your roadmap? Like, how are you navigating this world, this whole business world, because it's a different animal. It's not, you know, this is not ministry per se. It's not church. You know, we know how to navigate church folk and all of that. But when you're in the business world, there is a stereotype that you've got to be cutthroat. You've got to get this done. You know, so when you're faced with those sorts of dilemmas, or you've got to make those kinds of decisions, to whom do you go?
I go to God. Yeah, I go to God, and I just take the bull by his horns. You know, if I need to tell someone, you know, cutthroat something, I can say it and still be nice about it. You know, you don't have to be rude to people. You don't have to, you know, be loud and cursing people out. You don't have to do that. You know, you can cut someone's throat, you know, just with the nicest words ever. And you know, it comes a time when you have to be firm. You have to be firm.
So I guess what you're saying, when you're thinking of cutthroat, you're thinking of being direct. You're not thinking of being dishonest.
Absolutely.
You're
Direct.
thinking of this is what has to be done, what has to be said.
Yes.
Let's talk about your long-term goals, where CW Enterprises hopes to go.
Yes. Well, I want to have business centers all over the world that train and empower people to become entrepreneurs. That's my vision. Everything, this magazine, that's what this is about, empowering entrepreneurs. So that's my vision, is to have business centers all over the world that train people how to become entrepreneurs.
Why is that so important, Courtney? Why do we need more entrepreneurs? And let me ask you this specifically. Why do we need Christian entrepreneurs?
Well, I go back to our greatest commandment in my eyes, Genesis chapter 1 and 28. God blessed them, and God said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over everything that he has created. And so you can't do all of that if you're bagging groceries at Kroger. You can't do all of that if you're working a swing shift in the factory. You can't dominate the earth, you know, with just that. Somewhere in there you have to have a business. You have to be in authority. To dominate means to be over. Subdue, that means to have control over. and you don't have control bagging groceries and pushing buggies, you know?
Wow.
You know what I
Wow.
mean? That's just my eyes, you know?
That's a huge revelation, Courtney.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. We are going to have to take a break. Tell our viewers where they can learn more about what you do, what's your website, and how they can find out about your music school.
Everything, you can go to CourtneyWestbrook.com. Everything, that's my online portal. That's CourtneyWestbrook.com, my magazine, music, my photos, everything is on that website. And you can call me the old-fashioned way. You can just call me or text me, whatever have you. Facebook and Twitter, I'm on all of that stuff.
And it's important to note that Courtney is spelled without a U.
Yes.
It's Cortney.
Correct.
Have you launched your magazine yet, Courtney?
This is my one proof.
Okay.
I picked it up last week.
Yeah.
That's my one proof. I have not launched it just yet. It will be available to the public just in a couple of weeks, and we're having a launch party in California.
When does that happen?
The Bay Area, December 15th.
December 15th. All of that information available at CourtneyWestbrook.com.
Yes.
CourtneyWestbrook.com. Courtney, I mean, you are the people's entrepreneur.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back. When we come back, we've got Grant Sowell in studio. In studio with us. He's been in business for 20 years now, and so he's going to bring his perspective and talk about the things he's learned as the owner of his own business. We'll be back in just a little bit. Don't go anywhere.
That guy, he either ought to be fired or sent to some sort of classes, because that's pathetic.
It had to do with the shift of focusing on man and really focusing on God. I was desperate for the love of people, as Susan kind of shared, and for attention and that kind of thing, just because of my own lack in my own life.
I memorized scriptures just so that I looked holy enough. Now, did I believe a word of that? No.